welcome. We're at the Motor Show at Earl's Court in London.
And because we're on home ground, on this week's programme we'll be celebrating British manufacturers.
A little bit of the best of British.
You know, you can always rely on Lotus to put a smile on a driver's face, and the lucky driver who gets the keys to this should be beaming from ear to ear. It's a fantastic blend of absolutely gorgeous looks and race car performance, and it's called the M250, and I really, really want one. I'm just going to sit in here for a bit and, you know, hope you forget about me. Well, Graham, as Managing Director of Lotus, first of all, I've got to say congratulations. The car looks absolutely stunning. Are you pleased with people's reactions today?
Yeah, thank you. The reactions of people today are absolutely tremendous. I think it really shows that we've got the M250 concept car absolutely bang on. The car really is representing where sports cars should be going.
Yeah, of course. Now, you're saying it's a concept car. How likely is it to go into production? Because it would be great to see it. It really would.
It would be absolutely tremendous, wouldn't it? And what we've had the car shown at Frankfurt, we've got the car shown here in London today, and the judgment of the public and the judgment of the press and what response we get is going to be a big part of the decision in whether it goes into production.
Presumably it's a huge investment, particularly for you that you still are a small British company, so you have to really give it some thought.
Oh, absolutely. We can't really get into an investment of this scale without complete confidence in our minds that we're going to have a success. And if you think back to the Elise, we got that one absolutely right. That really sets the benchmark for British sports cars. Our own 340R of last year, another one we got absolutely right. We intend to get this one absolutely right.
Of course, the Elise ended up being very close to the concept. Are we likely to see a lot of the features from the M250 go into a production vehicle?
Well, what we've got in the M250, you've actually got some very innovative features which we think would be perfect for a leading-edge sports car. We've got a new aluminium and bonded composite chassis which gives us superb stiffness and really light weight. And in fact, the M250 weighs something less than 1,000 kilograms. That's a good 400 kilograms less than a comparable Porsche or Ferrari. And you're going to get really sparkling performance and agile handling. It really is going to be the best in its class.
And of course the engine's going to play a huge part in that performance. And I know there isn't an engine in this one because it's the show car. What engine will go into it?
The engine will be a 3-litre V6, around 250 horsepower to give us 0 to 60 acceleration in under 5 seconds. And it will be a Lotus-developed version of another manufacturer's engine.
Now, you are a small British manufacturer, although probably not as small as many of them. But how do you keep going? Because you're one of the few that manages to have success. You're still here. You're still with us. What do you think the secret of that success is?
We think it's easy. Right from the first days, Lotus cars have always appealed to the driver. It's the only place that you can get a real driving experience on the road or on the track. And by sticking true to those principles, we've always appealed to the marketplace we're looking at.
I think you've cracked it again with this one. Can I have the keys for it when it's ready?
Absolutely.
See, you've heard it. It's just said. Can I have the keys?
From high-tech to something more traditional, Chris Goffey charts the winds of change blowing through the Malvern Hills.
Now, the wind of change doesn't blow very often through these rolling Malvern Hills. It's one of the most traditional places in England, and that's true of the Morgan factory here at Great Malvern. Now, they haven't made a 4-seater Morgan since 1997. That's because the old model just simply would not pass European legislation. Well, now thanks to twin individual rear seats with headrests, substantial ironmongery on the chassis and a new hood and side screens, the 4-seater is set for a relaunch. Let's see how it goes. Indispensable accessory for driving any open Morgan in this weather. Doesn't look a lot different from the production car except for this extra space at the back. Long side screens that actually make the car amazingly draft free when you're driving along with the top down, and the seats will fold flat to give you extra luggage space if you need it. On the road it feels much like any Morgan did right back to the 1930s, with that sliding pillar front suspension they refused to get rid of. solid leaf springs at the back, and that means you feel every bump in the road through the seat of your pants. Although you have to say it rides a lot smoother than some of the cars did in the 50s and 60s when they really were bone-jarringly hard. The old four-seater was fitted with Rover's 2-litre 16-valve unit, and that engine has been discontinued. For the relaunch, they've chosen Ford's 1.9 Zetec engine, very smooth and responsive, and a Ford 5-speed gearbox that changes gear a lot more easily than the old 4-speed crash Moss gearbox I can remember from Morgan's of the 1950s. Well, most of the changes in the four-seater are easily apparent. These individual bucket seats at the back with detachable headrests replace the old bench seat of the old four-seater that was not only rather stark, it was also, from personal experience, very uncomfortable. You were stuck high up, and of course you collected all the blue bottles and the butterflies that the driver missed. These seats are much lower, so you're sitting much deeper into the car, and apart from anything else, that makes you feel a great deal safer. Obviously the seat belt mountings have made the most change. Inside this leather coating is a steel subframe bolted to the chassis, as we saw, and that also has the mountings for the front seat belts too. So let's see how the new hood goes up. Morgan say that's a lot easier to put up than their old hoods with the lift the dot fasteners and Zutz fasteners all around the outside. That's as may be, but it's hardly a smooth one-handed operation when it suddenly starts to throw it down and your girlfriend's complaining about the state of her hair. Can lead to a lot of arguments. Morgan say they're the first British manufacturer to have secured European whole vehicle type approval for the four-seater. In order to achieve that approval, they had to design a completely new body from the door hinges back, and significant improvements have been made to the safety and ergonomics of the car. Morgan seems to have become a lot more expensive than I remember. This car is on sale at £26,000, and there's a long list of extras that could bring the bill well over 30. Amongst the extras, though, is an item that you won't find on Volkswagen, Ford or Rover's price list. For 70 quid, they'll give you a photographic record of the build of your car. Now, isn't that worth waiting 5 years for?
When you think of BMWs, perhaps a picture of luxury saloons is what springs to mind. But brand new from BMW and available at dealers from September 2000 is the new X5, a luxury off-roader, or as BMW call it, a sports activity vehicle. We went to the world launch in Atlanta, Georgia to report on it for you. The X5 boasts a host of features, including the very latest four-wheel drive technology with individual brake application and dynamic stability control. All that thanks to their affiliation with Land Rover. It also has the usual safety level that you'd expect from BMW, with their first safety package and up to 10 airbags. Inside, you don't choose interior trim as such. Instead, you choose from 3 different worlds: the spirit of nature, comfort, which includes Montana leather, or the spirit of exclusivity, which is top of the range. The X5 will be built in BMW's plant in South Carolina in America. It'll appear first of all as the X5 4.4i. That means a 4.4-litre V8 with a top speed of 207 km per hour and acceleration to 100 km per hour in 7.5 seconds. Now, when we finally get the X5, it's expected to cost around £46,500. Now, that's a bold statement from Munich, as this prices the X5 6% higher than its direct rival, the Mercedes M-Class, and it towers over the Jeep Cherokee at around 35 grand. Our team's verdict on the car? Well, you'll have to stay tuned for the full report. That's due soon. But the car was tested on the interstate highway, on country roads, in deep water and on an off-road course, and the vehicle excelled in all those conditions. The X5 is a car that lives up to all the hype surrounding its launch. It offers drivers typical BMW luxury, comfort and driver appeal, but with the added bonus of off-road ability.
Now, you wouldn't think that this rather stunning piece of machinery could power a 2.5-ton Bentley to speeds in excess of 155 miles per hour now, would you? But it can, and you'll find it in the Arnage red label. That's all we've got time for. Make sure you join us after the break for more of the very best of British.
We couldn't possibly do a show looking at British sports car manufacturers without talking about TVR. And we couldn't possibly talk about TVR without looking at this, their latest offering. It's the Tuscan Speed 6. Seen here not for the first time perhaps, but certainly for the first time in full production guise. The Speed 6 refers to the glorious straight-six engine that's found ordinarily in the Cerbera. But whereas, as in that monster, it can be a bit of a handful, shall we say, TVR reckon that in this, the Tuscan, it's far more, well, perhaps docile isn't the word, but more easily manageable. In fact, TVR reckon this is going to be a true grand tourer with plenty of room for people, not too challenging to drive, and even room for luggage. You may think that this looks a little bit too wild to take on the road, but 1,300 people certainly don't, because they've already got orders in for theirs at £39,500. Ben, in many ways, the defining characteristic of the Tuscan has to be that incredible straight-six engine. We've seen it in the Cerbera, and it can be a bit of a handful. You're saying this is going to be a little bit easier to drive. Does that mean it's a compromise?
You have to make a compromise when you're building a car, because you can either build a car that is incredibly quick around a circuit, or you can build a car that is usable every day. And more of our customers use their cars to commute in and out of town than they take them on circuits. They do take them on circuits, but it just isn't every day. So yes, you have to make a compromise. The Tuscan is available, the standard form is softer. It is a very comfortable car to drive, to use. We are introducing a new division, which if you want it to be more sporting, they can sell you the bits, the kit of parts which we will fit at the factory to make the car a lot more sporting.
Now, it sounds ridiculous to talk about practicality in a car that looks the way it does, but you have looked at that, and in terms of Grand Tourer capability, there is some there.
What seems to us, and we can't understand it, when we look at a lot of our competitors, they build two-seater convertibles that you can't go on holiday in, because you can't fit the luggage in the boot with the roof down. I just can't understand that. So it's very important to us that two people can fit luggage for a fortnight's holiday in the boot, and you can still get the roof down. So yes, we've designed it so it specifically does that.
It's still a pretty specialist end of the market, and life for British sports car small manufacturers has traditionally been rather precarious. You actually are putting down roots deep enough now to appear completely stable. But has technology got an important role to play here in small volume manufacturers growing?
We couldn't have designed as much of the car that we build in-house without the benefit of the very highest of high-tech CAD/CAM machinery. We still style the cars with years of sculpting. It's like when you're washing a car. It's not until you've actually cleaned your own car that you can really appreciate the subtlety of the lines. We believe that if you can style a car in 3 months on a computer, you can't appreciate it. It takes years of sculpting it. So we do that very much the old-fashioned way. But the engine, the suspension, the brakes, all done with the very, very latest CAD/CAM computer wizardry.
But nevertheless, if you're buying that British sports car, that exclusivity is part of the whole experience, that hand-built feel. So how can we know that for certain TVRs, say, in 50 years' time, are going to become bland and homogenised like everybody else?
I don't think there's any chance whatsoever of TVR ever becoming bland or politically correct. I mean, for heaven's sakes, we've just launched a road car with 800 brake horsepower per tonne. We're not that politically correct yet.
Now, there are plenty of British manufacturers that say they are the oldest, the biggest and the best, but there are very few that can claim to have been owned by the same family for 40 years. Well, Marcos can, and this is Chris Marsh, the son of the man who put the Mar into Marcos. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah. We started 40 years ago by my father, and the name Marcos comes from the word, I don't know if you can see the back.
Well, we know it, yeah.
MAR is my surname, Marsh, and then we had Frank Costin, and that's how you got Marcos, the same way as they got Cosworth.
It's brilliant to see that you're ending the millennium off, going to the new millennium with a new model. It's the new Mantis, it's here behind us. What's different about the car this time?
Mainly the horsepower. It kicks out about 500 horsepower. There's a huge, great Vortex supercharger on it. And a lot of it comes from the racing that we're doing with the Mantis. We have our own race series, so the brakes, the suspension, it's all down to handling, horsepower, and it does about 0 to 60 in 3.9, so it's pretty quick.
It's blinding performance, isn't it? Is it on sale now?
Oh yeah, you can buy it. This car's actually been bought by someone, by a pop star, but...
tell us who.
It's a guy called Maxi Jazz from Faithless.
Yeah.
He's just up and coming pop star, and he's bought it. So he likes the cars for some time. So
it's great to see you here at the show, and it's also good to see so many British manufacturers doing so well. What do you think the secret is in? What is it about your cars that makes people love them so much?
I think mainly they're different. They're different. They're very fast, and they handle well. A lot of people that buy this car will take it on track days. They go on these circuit days. We have people that go around Europe to different circuits, and they just love the horsepower and the handling of the car.
It's a big toy, really, isn't it?
That's right, it is a toy. Although we have a lot of women that buy them as well. So.
Well, I've driven one of your cars,
I know.
Wanda, and it was the most blinding afternoon. It really was. I was surprised I managed to get it in one piece. But thanks very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Well, there are toys, and there are toys, and there are toys. And then there's this. It's the Caterham Superlight R500. Weighs about as much as an average wing mirror and is substantially more powerful than 3 of your average cars. It is an incredible machine. It's very, very new. And sitting next to me is Simon Nearn, who's the man in charge of the company. This is very fresh indeed, this car, isn't it? We've just seen it now.
Yeah, it just came out, launched for the show for this year. It's our latest variation on the Caterham 7 It was built and designed to be lighter, faster than anything else around.
It's outrageous. It's tiny, granted, but in many ways it's one of the biggest cars on the road, isn't it?
In terms of power to weight ratio, which is what it's all about in smaller cars, we're at 460 kilos, 230 horsepower. But to reach that is a technologies based around all our suppliers. So we're using magnesium where other people use alloy, we use carbon where other people use aluminium. And we've done a lot of work both internally with the engine and with the whole car to get the weight down.
And that power to weight ratio, that's where the 500 comes from in R500.
That's exactly what it is.
500 bhp.
500 brake horsepower per tonne. Yeah.
Which is kind of a magical figure, isn't it?
It is, because you can put that up against any other car, V8, V10, V6, anyone you like. Is currently building production cars, and it makes us the fastest power to weight ratio, which is what acceleration is all about. And weight is also contributes to the handling of the car, which surpasses anybody else. It's not just about going quickly in a straight line, it's about handling, cornering and agility.
So 0 to 60 comes up in about 3 point very little seconds.
3.4.
Which is motorcycle times. And there's a lot of people getting out there and doing that. And it's an interesting point that there seems to be quite a growing market for outrageous toys like this that, let's be honest, aren't cheap.
Yeah, you call them toys, but other people call them high-performance cars. But our history is steeped in motorsport. We've got over 370 registered drivers worldwide now, and that leads us towards building cars for the road that are also very good at the track use. If you want a road car from us, we'll build you a much more, not stately, and it'll still be 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds, but a slightly more sensible car. But they're all built to order. And if your order is, I want to go light, I want to go fast, I want to drive around the outside of everybody on racetracks, and I want to put a bigger smile on my face I'm ever going to see on the road, then you come to us.
The British motorsport industry kind of has a fond place in many hearts in this country. We do think of it very fondly, although it does seem to be dwindling. Then again, we see the occasional resurgence. Obviously, you keep a close eye on what's happening. How friendly are you all? At a show like this, are you all kind of lobbing half bricks onto the stand next to you? Or?
No, I think far from it. I think when you're under fire from all sides, when your major British industries are being brought up by other countries, I think it's even more so you look to each other and go, good to see you still here. And we've been here for 40 years, and there's been other companies around us long. A lot of them have gone under and come back again. And you'll see other new cars around where people have picked up a mark and tried to run with it again. But I think if you ask any of them, it's not an easy industry. It's very hard to be producing low-volume cars in an ever-changing world.
Family-run business, of course, for yourself, which again is unusual. Must be quite difficult to maintain the pace, the momentum, to keep developing and stay with what is absolutely brand new and cutting edge, rather than playing purely to the traditional family feel of it. Because this is a cutting-edge car.
Very much so. I mean, we've always been ahead of the game as far as development of things for the road are, because we have so much motorsport experience and we can get it to the market a lot quicker and in some cases a lot less cost than major manufacturers. We can do things tomorrow that other people might have to wait a couple of months for.
This one will set you back about £30,000. It's faster than pretty much anything else. Can I have a go?
Go for it.
AC Cars may well be Britain's oldest manufacturer. Would you believe they started life in 1901, but they're still managing to keep up and set the fashion. And they plan to enter the new millennium with a bang, thanks to a deal with Lotus to supply engines for their cars, which include the rather stunning-looking Seeker. Well, John, it's good news for AC going into the next century, because you're going in with a new car, the Seeker. Could you tell us about it?
Yeah, basically we wanted a car that would be a little different from most, not just a 2+2, but a full four-seater for 4 adults to travel in comfort, and a car that will have a lot of potential in the USA.
Do you think that will live up to it? I mean, how much is it going to cost as well?
It's going to be very similar to the coupe. The cost of an automatic hood is very high, so it's going to be similar, a little more, about £80,000. This is the first production version. Next year we'll start getting into some reasonable volume.
So tell us about the performance, because I'm sure it's going to be an absolute blinder.
It should be a blinder, and in competition with most cars. We haven't done the full testing yet, but we're estimating around 5 seconds 0 to 60, and a top speed over 150, 160.
Wonderful. Now, you are a very small British manufacturer, and the last few years have been a bit of a change for you. You've gone into new ownership. What's been happening with the company? What can we look forward to seeing in the future?
Well, 3 years ago, Alan Lubinsky acquired the company, and the first year we went into a plan to see what we'd bought. The second year was to see what we could do with it. And this year we've done it, and we now have 5 cars on the stand which are production ready.
Well, it's wonderful. It's great to see you here, and it's good to see that the British, we can still do it, can't we?
I think we can, and we'll show them the way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.